So, if you know anything about Californian politics, then you know about SB 562, which is their single-payer healthcare bill that was gaining a lot of momentum. That is, until the Assembly Speaker, Anthony Rendon, decided to unilaterally shelve the bill. So he argued that even though he's in favor of single-payer, which is a joke, since the bill lacked a funding mechanism, well, we should just end debate altogether on it, and that's what he decided to do. Now, if the bill lacks a funding mechanism, then that's all the more reason to actually have a debate so you can iron out the flaws and figure out a way to fund it. Now, it's not that there was no way to fund this bill, because the people who were advocates for this bill, they had ideas as to how they wanted to fund it, but they just didn't agree on the precise method. But nonetheless, Anthony Rendon, because he is a shill for the health insurance industry and took thousands upon thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from them, he decided to do their bidding. And now he's going to learn very quickly that if you are a corrupt, bought-off shill, well, you may lose your job, because Don Papple of Inquisitor explains Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon, a Democrat representing Paramount, California, halted the measure that would have established single-payer healthcare in the state of California, prompting some of the bill's supporters to immediately threaten recall action against Rendon. According to the Facebook page for the Recall Rendon efforts, the organizers of the recall have already received confirmation from the Secretary of State that the group's notice of intent was reviewed for compliance with the California Elections Code, and that the signatures on the notice of intent were verified by the County of Los Angeles. The group announced that the petition drive begins this month. Recall Rendon organizers have planned weekly meetings every Tuesday in Assembly District 63, and its first major fundraiser is on August 18th. It's been over a month since SB 562, the single-payer healthcare measure, flopped in California, and even though Rendon has been labeled a progressive by many pundits, many progressive voters in California say they are willing to make an example out of Rendon over the healthcare issue. If we recall the Assembly Speaker, maybe someone else will be willing to push this bill, to get it out of the Rules Committee and send it to the Assembly to get a vote on it. And this is what Jessica Carrera-Bias told Los Angeles Times. Maybe that will help everyone get healthcare. The grassroots effort to recall Rendon includes a door-knocking drive. The notice was filed by an Irvine-based USC law professor who is also an attorney for the recall effort. So you went against your constituents and chose to prioritize the needs of your donors, and now, how's that working out for you, Anthony Rendon? Seems like there's a lot of people that are now coming for your job and trying to recall you, which would be just a national embarrassment. So I absolutely support this effort. I hope it works. I hope that they can successfully recall Anthony Rendon, so that way other Democrats across the country get the message that if they don't support Medicare for all, we're coming for their jobs and their asses will be kicked out of office. Now, for the sake of being objective, there are flaws with this particular bill, perhaps because it was in its early state, and I do want to link you to an article published in The Intercept by David Dayan, and the article includes dialogue between California Nurses Association's Public Policy Director Michael Lighty, who had this interesting back and forth about the bill. Now, I actually reject the author's argument because I think he was being too hyperbolic and really talking about just how flawed this bill was. But I think that Michael Lighty does a really good job at responding to his points and really makes the case that Anthony Rendon is not a good actor here, and what he did was still the result of corruption, and the bill wasn't fatally flawed like people tried to make it out to be. That's a propagandist talking point that the health insurance industry is desperately trying to promote in California. So it's really fascinating, so I would encourage everyone to read this article. But again, I'd like to think I've been consistent in saying, if this bill is flawed, that's all the more reason to bring it to light and have a debate on it. Let's flesh out all of the flaws that it has, and let's try to figure out how to fix them. Because look, single payer, it's not easy. Public policy making in general is a difficult task, but that's why you have the debate. But Anthony Rendon doesn't want to have a debate about this. He wants to shelve it because that's what his health insurance donors want him to do, because they are shaking in their boots at the thought that California might actually become the first state in the nation to make single payer a reality. So look, Anthony Rendon is corrupt, and they absolutely must recall him and make an example. So if you can support this effort, if you live in California, and knock on some doors, the more power to you, because this is something that needs to be done.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.